Hello, this is Starseed Jason Moss. This video clip will detail the further events which took place on the night I remember in 1992. First of all, I would like to say that on this video clip I will be revealing her name, the hybrid girl from that night. Her name is Benico. I believe it is spelled B-E-N-I-C-O, Benico. Benico's message to me is that someone will be channeling her. She indicated a female person and a male person. That's what she told me. I received messages from her. But that she said that it would first be a female person, and then she went on to say that it would be a male person. I think that what I'm about to reveal is going to be difficult for some people to comprehend and swallow down. It's going to be difficult. It's going to challenge your understanding of space-time and events and causality. It's going to be difficult for some to comprehend. Researchers, scientists who are listening to this, you will understand this. It will make sense. But for other people, it's going to be too challenging, and I understand if this is something that you will find too challenging to be believed. Have you ever wanted to see a happy ending? Have you ever seen a movie or heard a true story with a cool ending? Let's continue with the night I remember in 1992 as the story goes. As Benico has certainly made a storyteller of me, these are true stories. And the experiences with her and all this has helped to bring forth some more aspects to the world of the Sassani people and who they are, and their loving, devotional, loving feelings for humanity, and their devotionally unconditional loving hearts, pure love hearts. I remember several events, several outcomes at the same time from that night. I'd like to go in just for a minute to the Star Trek old series episode, the original series, where we had the Enterprise met with a wild, crazy, dark man, only to discover he was the anti-negative of the same man from another universe. They meet the good man, and he tells them the only way to save the universe from collapse was that he had to destroy the ship that the good man arrived in, that the anti-negative of the other universe man arrived in. As the two continued to get close to each other and fight, it was causing a disruption that could destroy the universe and the fabric of space-time. Unfortunately, when they met the good man, he told the Enterprise, he told Captain Kirk that he must destroy his ship and forever abandon him in a loop in which they would be fighting to the death forevermore without dying. Forever caught in another dimension, dueling for all times, good and evil. This is a very good, kind of a good example in some respects of the causality time loop for which I am forever a prisoner of. It is, I think, a consequence of love also, because when you love someone, you reach out and you try to help them. When that someone is someone as special and as incredible as Benico, you reach through time when given the opportunity to do so, you go through time. The opportunity at some point will manifest itself to me in this timeline, somewhere along the way. I will have access to that ability to return to that night. Let's first talk about what happened on that night in the first memory. There are several memories here. The one that caused me so much pain to remember in the first degree was the memory of Beniko being sort of mistreated by these intelligence people, by this military unit, without naming names or branches of service. And that was very difficult for me to relive that experience. My memories are unusually strange, and some have even said inconsistent and too hard to believe. But I'll go ahead with that. I also have a memory, extraordinary as it is. I saw myself arrive. There was suddenly, just before, it was in the moment she was taken from me, pulled from my arms by these people, there was, let's go into that second memory just for a minute of the same night. It's like I have different timeline memories in my head at the same time. When she was pulled away from me, in this second memory we'll call it, there was suddenly a stirring in the camp. Everybody was quite shaken, frightened. Something was distressing them. I heard one soldier report to his commander, and he said, they're in the area, referring to a craft, the Greys, or somebody was in the area. There was a bit of a panic among the soldiers, not me. Beniko then turned to me and she said, "You called them." She said, "You called them here." And I said, "I do feel that a connection to this craft that is approaching. I do feel this." And she said to me that she wanted me to forgive what was happening and what was going on. She feared for everyone's safety, even though they had planned to do something negative to her. She was still thinking very much about everybody and their welfare at this point, knowing that at some point she would go back to them eventually, peacefully. And she didn't want me to call them. You're going to ask me, what do you mean called them? How can you call them? And why wasn't she calling them? We'll have to leave that as it is for now. Anyways, the craft was triangular, like a large triangle ship, very large, with a light at the center and 3 lights at each point. The craft arrived at the end. It flew over my mother's street and hovered over the oak trees, maybe 50 feet off the ground, and it was massive. The soldiers stood very still, very calm. They didn't move. There was a great deal of tension in the camp of these people. At this point, everyone in the center of this camp, where the colonel was, there was some people that screamed or yelled. And suddenly there was a man that appeared. The man was wearing glasses and a cap. And immediately I gazed at the man for a minute, and one of the soldiers, the man was speaking to the commander, and Beniko walked straight to him, and then looked back at me, and then looked at him, and looked back at me, and then looked at him again. She was standing by him. Even she looked a little puzzled as to what was happening. And then she says to him, "You have to go with me, but I will be going with you." Now, she'd been telling me this in our phone chat days earlier, before that night, that I would have to go with her. She kept saying this. She was now telling this man this, and I thought, okay, you'll be going with him. The soldier standing behind the man took the cap off, and immediately, while the man was addressing the colonel, the soldier behind him, the sergeant, whatever, took his cap off, just took it off, I don't know why, just quickly rips it off his head. And then he looked over at me and he made a joke, having something to do with having gray hair, or thinning hair, or I don't know what the joke was. And then in that moment I realized, the man looked over at me and I was looking at him, and the man said to the colonel, "I cannot have any contact with him. It is very important that I don't talk to him, that we don't interact." In that moment I realized I was staring at myself, an older Jason Moss, standing there, who had come back in time to collect Beniko, to get to save her, to take her. He was speaking to the colonel, and the colonel said something to him, and then the colonel said very clearly and loud, "You come back here and expect me to go along with this. You stand there wearing that uniform." In fact, my future self was wearing the same uniform, the same kind of clothing that Beniko was wearing, the same sort of insignia. It was a uniform, like Sassani uniform, which is interesting because after our video, my videos that I've released recently, there was an experience where in my mind I was feeling or seeing a ceremony of the Sassani, and some of them were wearing capes with like a star on the back of the capes, and they were black, and they were wearing spandex-like suits, doing this in a circle, facing the center of something aboard a craft, a triangular craft. And then the one turned to me quickly and said, "You are now an honorary member of the Sassani people." And this was to do with loading the videos, or now becoming public, and fulfilling the rest of the mission that Beniko had put me on 20 years earlier. Now, she had told me in our phone chat that I would be doing all this, that this is what I'm meant to do. She had spoke of telling the story. You know, this is all a true story, but she had said there was the importance of getting this across. But getting back to that night, my future me said, "I have something to tell Jason." And then I looked at myself. Oh, okay. I looked at myself. Okay, now just a minute. Future Jason looked at me, 20-year-old Jason. My future me told younger me, "My message to you is, it's not the first girl, it's the second one that you end up with." Or it could have been, "It's not the first time, but the second time you end up with her." Now this was having something to do with a connection to South America, and I won't go into details on this video about that, but it was something to do with second girl or second time. Now at the moment I don't know what I'm talking about what my future self was talking about. Okay, this gets a little difficult, and it was even more difficult to explain this typing messages on a instant messenger or MSN messenger, Yahoo messenger, or even writing this in groups. It was very difficult to explain this time travel incident in 1992. At this point, Beniko then goes with future Jason Moss and leaves. At this point, I don't remember too much of what happens after this. At this point, no one's really dealing with me now. Even the lady that was standing to my right, the blonde lady, she even went over, left me standing on my own, and talked to future me. She seemed to know future me, the older Jason Moss. I can remember looking at myself thinking, goodness, I've aged. I look so much older. You know, I was 20 in 1992, so this was quite a shock to see this. But I seemed to know exactly what was going on. I seemed to know exactly what was happening. What happens next is that I'm aware of the fact that she goes with future me. Thus, it goes back to what she said in the phone chat a few days earlier. She was saying to me, it's very important that I remember all this, that I will be triggered, that the heart never forgets, love never forgets, that the soul never forgets. But in the time in between, in the 18 years until 2010, she was telling me that it was down to that connection that I had to remember by the heart. It had to come out. There was a chance, she said, that it wouldn't come out. Thus, she said that the events of the night that was coming could go down in another way. But in the time in between, in those 18 years, there wouldn't actually be a Beniko coming to me directly, and here I am, Jason. And she was coming to me in feelings and an experience in 1994, but there wasn't going to be, it would disrupt the timeline of what was coming next, which is now what's coming next. So the timeline is now fulfilling itself. But as paradoxes go, as I understand it, I am, and I'm not bothered by this, as long as she's happy and comfortable, is all that matters to me. And I am, for that reasoning, trapped forever in a loop, in a space-time paradox, in which I am forever going back in time to pick up Beniko from that night in 1992. That is something that has been done before, will be done again, and will always be done, time and time again. Now, yesterday, tomorrow, and pretty much forevermore. And I don't know how long the expanse of time is, space-time, in this universe. But I will always be meeting myself on the road in 1992 and seeing myself interacting with her and collecting her and boarding that triangular craft over and over and over and over again. Pretty amazing stuff. And those are the memories that have resurfaced thus far. What was going on? You know, this was a really strange circumstance to be standing inside of. But this would explain, at least to me, the reason why there wasn't any contact from Beniko over these 18 years. Peace and love and unity and oneness to you all. I send you love and peace.